There is a particular kind of crying that has nothing to do with sadness. It arrives sideways, catches you off guard in a parking lot or a kitchen or somewhere equally unremarkable, and it does not ask permission first. The body simply releases something it has been holding for longer than the mind ever admitted out loud. That is the crying I am reading for you today. Not grief, release. I see hands pressed against a mouth, the universal gesture of someone trying to physically contain something too large for a single breath to manage. Not because the news is bad, because it is finally, after so long, real. There is a particular shock that comes from watching something you have wanted for years stop being a private fantasy and start becoming an actual, touchable fact. The mind does not adjust instantly. It lags behind the event, still half convinced this is one more near miss disguised as the real thing. Give it a moment to catch up. What is arriving is not a near miss. Let me describe what I am seeing, because the specifics matter more than the general feeling. I see a long hallway, doors lining both sides, most of them closed, and at the very end, one door stands open, light pouring out of it in a way that makes the entire corridor visible for the first time. You have walked this hallway before. You know its length, its shadows, the particular ache of passing closed door after closed door without knowing which one, if any, would eventually open. This time, one did, and the light coming through it is not subtle. It is not a sliver, not a crack you have to squint to notice. It is full, generous, spilling out across the floor toward you. You do not have to search for this anymore. It found you first. I want to stay with this image a moment longer because the hallway itself deserves more attention than I gave it at first pass. Think about every closed door you walked past on the way here. Each one represented a version of this dream that did not work out the way you initially hoped. A path that looked promising and then quietly dead-ended. A possibility that seemed certain and then dissolved without explanation. Each closed door cost you something. Time, energy. A small piece of your willingness to keep believing the next door might actually be different, and yet you kept walking. That detail matters more than almost anything else in this reading, because the version of you who eventually reaches the open door is not the same version who started down that hallway. You are walking toward this moment changed by every closed door along the way, carrying lessons you did not ask for but absorbed anyway, becoming someone more capable of holding what is now arriving than you were when you first set out. The hallway was not wasted time. It was preparation disguised as delay. I want to talk about the specific dream itself for a moment, even without naming its exact shape, because I think the texture of waiting matters as much as the texture of arrival. You have carried this dream quietly for a long time, not loudly announced to everyone around you, not performed for an audience that needed convincing. Carried privately, almost protectively, the way you carry things that matter too much to risk exposing to careless opinions. There were seasons where it felt impossibly far away, seasons where the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be felt less like a gap and more like a canyon with no visible bridge across it. You kept walking toward it anyway, not because you were certain it would work, because stopping felt worse than the uncertainty of continuing. That persistence is the actual mechanism behind what is arriving now, not luck, not random timing, the accumulated weight of every day you chose to keep moving instead of giving up on something invisible. There is an image now of a seed breaking open underground, the moment before any green shoot becomes visible above the soil. This is the part of growth nobody gets to witness. The unglamorous, completely invisible labor that happens in total darkness, with no audience, no proof yet that anything is working, just pressure and patience and a slow internal reorganization that eventually, without warning, produces a visible result. You have been in that underground stage for what has probably felt like an unreasonably long time. And I want to be honest with you about something. The length of that stage was not a sign of failure. It was simply how long this particular seed needed. Some things take a season, others take several. The timeline was never a referendum on your worthiness. What matters now is that the shoot has broken the surface. You are no longer underground. I think it is worth naming what that underground stage actually demanded of you, because I do not want this reading to gloss over how difficult it genuinely was. It demanded that you keep showing up to something with no visible proof it was working, that you continue investing energy, time, sometimes money, sometimes pieces of your own confidence into a process that gave you very little external confirmation along the way. Most people abandon things at exactly this stage precisely because the absence of visible progress feels indistinguishable from actual failure. You did not abandon it. There were almost certainly nights where you wondered if you were simply being stubborn rather than wise, where the line between persistence and denial felt blurry and uncomfortable to sit inside. I want to tell you clearly now, from where I am standing with these images in front of me, that it was persistence. Real persistence, the kind that eventually produces exactly what you are seeing arrive in this reading. The doubt you carried during that stage does not cancel out the outcome now. It was simply part of the cost of getting here. I want to ask you something directly. When you picture this dream actually arriving fully, undeniably, what is the very first thing you imagine doing? Not the practical first step, the emotional one. Who do you want to call? What do you want to say out loud, finally, after holding it in for so long? Sit with that image for a second. Drop it in the comments if you want. Tell me what the first call looks like for you, who is on the other end of it, what it will feel like to finally say the thing you have been waiting to say. Let me describe something else, because joy like this has a particular physical signature that I want you to recognize when it arrives so you do not talk yourself out of it. I see a chest rising fuller than it has in a long while, breath reaching all the way down instead of staying shallow and guarded near the top of the lungs. That kind of breathing only happens when the nervous system finally believes, on some level deeper than conscious thought, that the threat has passed. You have been breathing carefully for a long time, managing your inhale, keeping some part of yourself braced even during good moments, just in case. This news, when it lands fully, is going to change that breathing pattern. Not metaphorically, actually, your body is going to register the shift before your mind has finished processing the implications. Pay attention to that. It is one of the clearest signs that something has genuinely changed rather than simply offering temporary relief. I want to talk about timing for a moment because I think it deserves direct acknowledgement rather than vague reassurance. This did not arrive the moment you first wanted it. It did not arrive on the schedule you privately hoped for, back when hope still felt easier to access without bracing against disappointment. It arrived now, on its own timeline, built from conditions that needed to align in ways that were largely outside your direct control. That delay was not punishment. I see a long thread woven through many smaller moments you might not have connected to this outcome at the time. a conversation that seemed unrelated, a setback that initially felt like pure loss, a relationship that did not work out, redirecting your path in a direction you did not choose, but that ultimately positioned you correctly for what is happening now. None of it was wasted. Every piece of that thread led here. I want to stay with this idea of timing a little longer because I think it is the part of this reading most likely to bring you to tears in the way the title of this video already promised. There is a particular grief that lives inside long waiting periods. Not despair exactly, but something quieter and more persistent. The slow ache of watching other people's versions of this dream arrive on what looks like an easier schedule. The private wondering late at night whether you missed some crucial step that everyone else seemed to know about instinctively. I want to tell you something about that ache. It was never evidence that you were behind. It was simply the felt experience of growing at a pace this particular dream actually required from you specifically. Comparing your underground season to someone else's visible bloom was never an accurate measurement, even though it felt unbearably accurate in the moment. The thread was always intact. You simply could not see its full shape from inside the waiting. You can see it now. There is an image of a table being set, plates and glasses arranged with quiet care, clearly in preparation for something being celebrated rather than simply consumed. This table was not set hastily at the last minute. The preparation has been underway for a while, even if you were not fully aware of it happening. Forces beyond your immediate visibility have been arranging themselves toward this exact outcome, the way a host quietly prepares a room before guests arrive, wanting everything to be ready the moment the door opens. You are about to walk into a room that has already been prepared for your arrival, not improvised, not thrown together in a rush, prepared deliberately by everything you have done to deserve being met this way. I want to mention something about the people who are likely to be part of this celebration because I think it matters who gets to witness this with you. Not everyone in your life needs to be at this table. Some people only ever showed up for the version of you that was still struggling, still uncertain, still small enough not to threaten whatever comfort they found in your difficulty. Those people may feel slightly unsettled watching you arrive somewhere this solid, and that unsettlement is theirs to manage, not yours to soften. But there are others. The ones who believed in this dream even during the seasons when you privately stopped believing in it yourself. The ones who asked about it gently, kept space for it, never let you fully convince them it was not going to happen. Those are the people this table was actually set for. Make sure they are the ones sitting at it. If the people closest to you have not always known how to hold space for this dream the way you needed them to, that does not diminish what is arriving. It simply means part of this season may involve recalibrating who gets the front row seat to your joy going forward. That recalibration is allowed too. It is not betrayal. It is simply growth, choosing better company. I want to address something that might be sitting underneath the joy right now, quietly, almost guiltily. A flicker of disbelief that refuses to fully relax even as the good news settles in. A small, persistent voice asking whether this is actually permanent or whether it will somehow slip away the moment you let your guard down completely. That voice is not unusual. Big wins after long waiting periods often trigger exactly this kind of suspicious relief, where the joy and the doubt arrive simultaneously, tangled together instead of clean and separate. I want to gently address that doubt directly. What is happening is not fragile. It is not contingent on you staying tense in order to keep holding it together. It does not require constant vigilance from you to remain real. It is simply, finally, solid ground. You can stop holding your breath now. Let me describe one final image before we move toward closing this reading. A crowd, loosely gathered, faces turned toward someone standing slightly apart from the rest, illuminated not by anything theatrical, but simply by attention, genuine attention. The kind that arrives naturally when something real is being witnessed rather than performed. That person is you, not because you are about to become famous or extraordinary in some dramatic external sense, because the people who matter, the ones who have watched you carry this dream quietly for years, are about to witness you finally putting it down because you no longer need to carry it. You get to simply live inside it instead. That shift from carrying to inhabiting is the real transformation happening here. I want to leave you with something important before we close. You are allowed to celebrate this fully, without immediately calculating what could go wrong next, without rushing past the joy toward the next item on some internal checklist of things still left to manage. This moment deserves your full presence, not 5 minutes of acknowledgement before you move on to worrying about maintaining it. The actual complete experience of having wanted something for a long time and finally, undeniably, having it arrive. Let yourself cry if that is what comes up. Let yourself laugh in the same breath if that happens too. The strange overlap of emotions that genuine joy, after a long wait, sometimes produces. There is something else I want to name about this particular kind of crying. The tears of joy this reading was titled around. They tend to arrive in waves rather than a single clean release. You might feel completely composed one moment, fully present and steady, and then something small triggers another wave entirely. A song playing in the background, a stray thought about how far you have actually traveled, a memory of an earlier, harder version of yourself who could not have imagined this outcome. Do not fight those waves when they come. Do not rush to compose yourself the moment a second wave arrives, embarrassed by how long the emotion is taking to fully move through you. This has been building for a long time. It is allowed to take a while to fully release. You earned every bit of this, not through luck, through the long, often invisible discipline of continuing to believe in something the rest of the world could not yet see. It is visible now, and it is yours. I want to say one more thing before we close, because I think it is the part that will matter most after the initial wave of emotion settles. This arrival is not the end of your story. I know it can feel that way in the immediate flood of relief, like the dream finally landing closes some kind of loop and everything afterward will simply coast on the momentum of this moment. It will not work exactly like that, and I want you prepared for that reality rather than blindsided by it later. There will be new challenges that come with this new chapter, different ones than the challenges of waiting and wanting, but real challenges nonetheless. The work of sustaining something is different from the work of achieving it. The skills required to maintain a dream once it arrives are not always identical to the persistence required to manifest it in the first place. I am not telling you this to dampen the celebration. I am telling you because I think you deserve to walk into this next chapter with clear eyes rather than the assumption that arrival means the difficulty is permanently finished. What I can tell you with confidence is this. You have already proven through everything that brought you to this exact moment that you are capable of meeting difficulty without abandoning what matters most to you. Whatever comes next, you have the evidence right here, right now, that you do not quit on things that are genuinely worth keeping. That evidence is the real gift underneath all of this, not just the dream itself, but the proof of who you are capable of being while pursuing it. Carry that forward. Tell me below what your dream actually is, if you feel like sharing it. I want to hear it. I read every single comment that gets left here. That's the reading for today, Virgo. Go let yourself feel this completely